Hello and welcome to A New Day with Susan. I'm your host, Susan Yockey, and today I'm here with a woman who for more than 30 years, Bonnie Compton, has dedicated her professional life to supporting families, a child and adolescent therapist, parent coach, and pediatric nurse practitioner. Bonnie's on a mission to make a difference in the lives of children by providing parents with empowering tools so they can parent mindfully and raise healthy, happy families. With clients from around the globe and practice that's accessible via phone, Skype, Zoom, or conference line, Bonnie supports parents, kids, and families through one-on-one individual therapy or parent coaching. She also facilitates parenting retreats, workshops, and classes. Bonnie believes it's never too late to make positive changes in any family situation, and she passionately shares her vision for parenting with courage through speaking webinars, the media, and as a host of her own podcast radio program. Wholehearted Parenting Radio, available on iTunes, Web Talk Radio, Radioactive Broadcasting Network, and Stitcher Radio. In her best-selling book, Mothering with Courage, Bonnie educates, inspires, and empowers all moms to learn to trust their own inner voice. It's that inner wisdom that allows moms to become their child's best parenting advocate. Bonnie has appeared as a parenting expert on numerous television and radio shows, including Great Day Washington, Washington, D.C., Talk of the Town, Nashville, Tennessee, New Day Northwest, Seattle, Washington, and Count on Two, Charleston, South Carolina, and has written parenting articles in magazines and newspapers, including Working Mother, Grandparent Link, Mindful Parenting Magazine, and Low Country Parent Magazine. She is also a certified scream-free parent leader. Bonnie lives in Charleston, South Carolina with her husband. She is a mom of 4 adult children and believes that being a mother has been her most important job. She also loves being grandma to her 3 beautiful granddaughters. Bonnie says, motherhood is a journey, and one that can be filled with joy and ease. When navigated mindfully, it's never too late to make powerful, profound, and positive changes for yourself and your family. I'd like to introduce you to Bonnie Compton, and thank you for being on my show. Welcome, Bonnie.
Thank you, Susan. I so appreciate you having me here.
Well, I'm excited about the opportunity to find out. I mean, that's quite a history, and we know that mothering is like really difficult and it can be challenging at times. And so what is the message that you really want to share with people in our world today, because anyone from around the globe can listen in today?
Sure. Well, I'm going to speak specifically to moms right now. That's how I wrote the book for moms, but this applies to parents. But I tell moms they have an amazing, unique ability to shape their children's future. And by doing that, they're shaping our world's future.
Yeah.
And I tell them it's not to put more pressure on them or guilt, to guilt them into anything, but what an opportunity. And when they learn to become a calm and confident mom and send healthy, positive messages to children, the ripple effect is huge. I'm a big vision thinker. I'm a woman on a mission. And I just think about because children, as I say in my book, the messages we send our children, they share them with the world. They take those messages into their adult life. And just imagine if children are given healthy, positive, loving messages and they grow up and they share those with the world. Yeah. We can take a look at our world right now, how wounded it is, how reactive it is.
Yeah.
So that's my mission in life.
Beautiful mission.
Help parents become much more mindful. Yeah.
Yeah.
And reconnect with their kids and rekindle the joy of parenthood. Yes, it's hard at times, but there's a lot of joy. also.
Yeah. What do you think some of the biggest challenges are that parents are facing today?
I think they're overwhelmed. I think, and again, one of the reasons I wrote Mothering with Courage for Moms is because I began to see mothers in particular really begin to doubt themselves and look outside themselves for answers. And there's over 100,000 parenting books on the market, right? So why should I write another one? Mine is different. It takes moms on a journey to help them find their own answers, because as I tell parents, they're their own child's best parenting expert. So parents become overwhelmed, they become frustrated, they're in the trenches, knee deep in parenthood, right? And again, moms in particular seem to doubt themselves and then feel guilty. As I say, mama guilt is the gift that keeps on giving and giving and giving, right?
Yeah.
So, and it's a busy world, and it's a very distracting world. It's easy to become distracted.
Yeah.
And so when parents are able to take some time and kind of pull back and say, okay, there is so much information out there. There is so much to do. There are so many distractions. What is important to us? What is the kind of parent that I wanted to be before I became a parent?
Yeah.
Right? And what do we want to teach our children, and what legacy do we want to leave?
Yeah.
So, and I think the pressure, there is so much pressure on parents now.
Yeah.
And the pressure to make sure their child gets in the right nursery school, so they get in the right elementary school, all the way up to the Ivy League college, that they start playing soccer at age 3. And
Yeah.
kids are just not allowed to be kids anymore. And it's done out of love. But there's this underlying pressure. If I don't sign them up now, then they're never going to get on the team in high school.
Oh,
There's
wow.
a lot of pressure, a lot of judgment.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of moms in particular judging each other. I know I was interviewed for an article about moms who choose to stay home with their kids.
Yeah.
And how can they do that without feeling guilty? And
Okay.
it's wonderful that not everybody can do that. I years ago was able to do that for a while, and I cherish those times. And it's not for everybody.
Yeah.
A couple of my daughters who are moms said, I don't know how you did it, but I'd go crazy if I stayed home. So there's, a mom has to feel good within herself about her own decision, because there's going to be plenty of people out there to tell her, oh, you're not really working. Being a stay-at-home mom, I think, is one of the hardest jobs.
I agree.
And the pay is not good. The payoff is good later, is better later. So there's just a lot of pressure. And if parents can just kind of take some deep breaths and say, I'm doing the best I can right now, and let me figure out if I need to make some changes.
Yeah. What would you recommend for moms who are looking out into the world, whether it be books or CDs or programs? How do they do it without trying to follow it perfectly to the T and just, you know what I mean?
Right. Well, and that's why I tell, there's a lot of great parenting books out there. There are, and I have recommended many of them, but parents would come to me and say, what book should I get for my child? And I said, you're not going to find one answer.
Got it.
It's not going to tell you about your child, everything about your child. And so whether you're following a program, I always say that, and the work that I do with families, I don't offer a cookie cutter approach, because every family is different, every child is different, right?
Yep.
So what works for one child may not work for another. Yeah. And again, when I wrote Mothering with Courage, the reason was my belief, the premise is I believe moms have the answers within.
Yeah.
And it's about becoming quiet. And I've told dads also, call the book Fathering with Courage, because people have said, you need to write one for fathers. And I said, I feel like a male needs to write that, actually. But parents have the answers within. And when they learn to trust their own inner guidance, their own intuition. Yeah. So yes, it's important to gather information, but then say, is this a good fit for my child? Is this a good fit for our family, for me?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think a lot of parents get caught up in the way society thinks we should be parenting, and the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, and follow this system, or
Right,
it can
sure.
be, like you said, overwhelming, and the pressure is real. The
Well,
struggle is
it's interesting. Since I wrote my book and I went on a book tour, and I've talked to many, many parents, and
yeah,
what I'm hearing is a lot of parents aren't reading parenting books anymore. And what they've told
really,
me that they feel worse about themselves after they've read it, that the strategies only work for a while and it overwhelms them. And so, of course, my challenge has been to let them know this is not, and people have read it, said this is not like a typical parenting book, because I'm not asking them to focus on their children. I'm asking them to focus on themselves
right,
and not get over. There is a lot of good parenting information from my 30 years of experience in there.
yeah,
But at the end of the day, parents are the ones to figure out what really works.
yeah. I'm just going to pause for a quick sec. So, I'm a mother of 4 adult boys, men, excuse me, ages
Right.
19 to 27.
Mm-hmm.
And then 15 years later, I've been blessed with my daughter, who is now 3.5. And I'm a grandma of 2 granddaughters under 1, and a grandson who's, I believe, 10, almost 11, and then another granddaughter on the way.
Oh my
And,
goodness.
when I look back on the years of raising my boys,
Mm-hmm.
I bet I went to probably, well, first off, I didn't have access to resources. Didn't even know there were any because of the background that I come from. But as I got into my earlier 20 years, when I was in my early 20s, I started finding out that there are resources. And then I went to like 7 parenting classes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
what made me think of that was when you said that a lot of the moms you have spoken to, the feeling of feeling worse, the feeling of I'm not doing this right, or those thoughts, not really the feeling, but the thoughts of feeling worse. I'm
Sure.
doing it all wrong. Definitely, that's where my mind went right to, because it was like, oh my gosh, I'm not doing this right, and I've
Mm-hmm.
screwed my kids up already.
Right. Right. Sure. I know.
And I
Yeah.
had to find a way to let that go and just keep doing the best that I knew how. And I would pick up bits and pieces, and I've read several books. And then I've attended more parenting classes. And you're
Mm-hmm.
right. I think in my own experience, I definitely have had to learn on my own what works for me out of those tools and what hasn't worked. And after the boys grew up, that's when I really started to see, oh my gosh, like the shame, the guilt,
Sure.
I screwed him up, for the longest time. And then I started doing my own transformational work. And that's when I was really empowered that I did do the best that I could with the tools that I knew.
At the
And
time.
I definitely was not one of those mothers who was thinking about how I would be raising my children. I just had children
Sure.
in
And that's the
an
way.
irresponsible way.
Right. Right. There wasn't a lot given.
Yeah.
Years ago when I had my kids, even though I had background I came from a very dysfunctional family.
Hmm.
My parents did the best they could. My dad
Yeah.
was an alcoholic. My mom had borderline personality disorder. They loved us the best they could.
Yeah.
And I decided my kids would never experience what I had, and I was going to create a perfect childhood. Well, that wasn't good either. That was a whole lot of pressure on me and them. There is no such thing, right?
Right. Yeah.
Luckily, we're all still speaking to each other and we love each other.
They're thriving.
And could I have been a better mother if I had had the tools? Could my mother have been a better mother if she had had the tools? So
That's
yeah,
right.
it's that we learn and each generation gets better.
Yeah.
And thank goodness we're not back in the age of children should be seen, not heard, and do it because I said so, sit there. Now, the pendulum has swung so far the other way.
Yeah.
Parents want to be their child's best friend.
Yeah.
What I tell them is, your child is lucky if they have 2 parents. They're going to have lots of friends and lots of best friends.
Yeah.
They need you to be the parent. They need to trust that you will show up
Yeah.
and guide them and love them and hold them accountable for their behavior.
Right.
So yes, sometimes they're going to get mad at you when you tell them no. And I teach parents about there are ways to say no. Because if you find that you're constantly telling your child no, then the walls go up, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that I work with parents a lot on is helping them learn to respond to their child versus react to the behavior.
I love that.
So when you mentioned about screen-free parenting, I am one of the certified leaders, and it's about pausing and calming yourself down to learn to respond to their behavior. And I tell parents, your child is not their behavior. This is not their true essence.
Yeah.
And behavior is not random. It is happening for a reason.
Yeah.
But then there often becomes learned behavior on both the parent's part and the child, and these patterns are set up.
Yeah.
So I love working with parents, and it doesn't take long at all. Actually, I now have 4 sessions, and parents are like, oh my gosh. Actually, on the second session, they say, things are so much better. And we're not focusing on the child's behavior. We're focusing on the parent's behavior and how they are reacting versus responding and the way they are in the relationship. And I tell every parent I work with, you are not a bad parent.
Yeah.
I don't believe they're bad parents. I just believe they're parents that don't know any better. They don't have the tools. But any parent that calls me or works with me, I say, you're an amazing parent because you're trying to do better, right?
Yeah. Yeah, just the fact that they even get on the phone, I think, with you is like a certain amount of courage, and they're being vulnerable. And
absolutely.
you know what I was going to ask you? So when you're working with the parent in about their reactive behavior, because I know for me with my daughter, I totally see her as a mirror of what she's learning. So she gives me the indicators of myself,
right,
which can be scary and painful at times, but it's
and humbling and
and humbling and joyful, and so when you're working with the parents and you said with their their behaviors or those reactions, do you work with them and show them that their reactions are actually past thinking reactions?
Well, I ask them, so when your child ramps up and has an outburst, and you ramp up and have an outburst, and they ramp up, it's kind of like a volcanic explosion, right? And they said, yeah. And I said, have you ever noticed the more upset you get when your child's already upset, that things just get worse? And they say yes. So they realize that is not working. They just don't know what else to do. And because these patterns have been set up, and it's through no fault, they just don't have an understanding. And of course, the child doesn't understand. And the child is asking them to be the grown-up here, Parents are getting reactive. So it doesn't take long just to shift that dynamic. And the other piece that I talk to parents about a lot is connection. And research has shown that kids who feel connected, truly connected to their parents, are much more willing to follow their guidance. Now, there are ways to be connected, and then there are ways to be connected, right? So parents say, oh my gosh, I spend so much time with them, and I'm constantly doing things for them. And I said, that is a form of connection, but it's often about get to soccer, get your homework done. And I say, if your agenda, which we all have an agenda as parents, right? Bath time, bedtime, dinner time, homework, that's all needs to happen. When the agenda outweighs the connection, there's an imbalance. So as a parent, you become what I call the Charlie Brown parent in the Charlie Brown cartoons, the womp.
Yeah. Oh, you froze. Are you still there, I don't know if you can hear me.
Okay. So when I'm working with parents, what I talk to them about is, first I want to find out the parent that they want to be, that they've wanted to be for their child, and that their child really needs them to be.
Yeah.
And, by the time parents come to me, many times they're in crisis, or they're so fed up with their kid. They're so angry. And what I often hear is, my child doesn't listen to me, and they melt down every time I say no. Okay. And they want me to fix their behavior. And I always tell them, your child's not broken. Their behavior is not broken. I'm here to help them fit in their world a bit better. But one of the first things we talk about is how kids push your buttons, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I always tell parents, I promise you, your children did not install those buttons. They were there many years ago. And so when you become triggered, that's when you're reactive. And so when a child is out of control, and then the parent becomes emotionally out of control, there's nothing positive that's coming of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And parents realize that. So I teach them ways to calm themselves down. But first we explore what those buttons are, what those triggers are. One day, a couple of years ago, I was teaching a parenting class, and I did an activity with parents about, what is your pet peeve? What is the behavioral pet peeve that you have? And one mom said, my teenage son doesn't respect me. And I said, okay. And I said, how does that make you feel? She said, horrible. And I said, is there a time in your life you can think back when that button was pushed? She said, oh my gosh, she put it, my first practice husband. And then she said, oh my gosh, my father didn't respect me.
Mm-hmm.
And so, or a parent said, whining drives me crazy. And there was someone in their life when they were growing up that used to whine. I think it was their mother. And so their child triggers them again, over and over again. And it really is an opportunity for growth when that happens.
Oh, big time.
The parents' growth. I always say children are our teachers.
Yep.
It's one of the chapters in my book. Children are our teachers. And just as you said with your daughter, Mel, she's mirroring for you, right?
Yeah. Yep. And exactly what you just said, like, I can recognize, only because I've got the tools, it can recognize that before the reaction. And I'm sure that's what you're teaching, is to recognize the reaction before it happens. And sometimes it's challenging. But even afterwards, I just get responsible for that reaction. But I instantly ask myself, who does that remind me of? And it always either goes to my mom or an ex, or
Sure.
I just work through that process.
Right. And so yes, kids are our teachers, and
yes, they are.
And they are going to push your buttons on a daily basis, right?
Yes.
And it's also an opportunity for all of us to learn not to be so reactive out in the world. Because there are people that push our buttons there too, right?
Yep.
So yeah.
Wow.
Back to, I was speaking before about the connection piece. And
yes, the connection.
Yes, children that are more connected, research is showing this, and children that are more connected feel more connected to their parents are much more willing to follow the guidance of their parents. They're much more compliant.
Yeah.
And otherwise you become this parent. Did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? And how does it feel to have a boss like that? That really the only time they pay attention to you or spend time with you is telling you what you need to do, right?
Yeah.
So kids begin to tune their parents out after a while. And even the most loving parents who feel like they are so connected to their kids because they're constantly with them or driving them to soccer or all of these, it's a different kind of connection. So one of the first homework assignments I give a parent is special time with their child. Even a parent who feels like they are spending 24/7 with their kids. I said, this is a different kind of time together. It's dedicated time. You're sending a message. to your child, you matter to me.
Mm.
And so carving out 15 minutes a day. And if there's two parents in the house, it's wonderful because you can tag team with kids.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't have to happen every day, but it needs to be consistent. And
Yeah.
letting your child pick out the activity and dropping your need as a parent to teach, preach, correct. Say if a child you're playing a game with your son or daughter and they start cheating, instead of saying, cheating, you know you can't do that, and your friends aren't going to want to play with you if you cheat. You know, we get into that. Just being playful and say, oh my gosh, you love to win. You love to change the rules.
I love
Let
that. Okay.
go, you know?
Yeah.
And so I call that the soft time.
Okay.
The soft time of special time gets you through the hard times, because then you see your child in a different light, from a different lens, as I talk about in my book. They are not their behavior. That's not who they are.
Right.
So connect.
I love that.
It really is.
Yeah.
Connect before you try to get them to do something.
When you say connected, my immediate thinking is that moment that I'm holding her when she's born. That kind of connection, looking into her eyes and playing and giggling, you know, doing little cooing and all that stuff. That kind of connection.
Right. Well, one of Oprah's favorite lessons came from Toni Morrison, who asked the question of parents, do your eyes light up when your child walks into the room?
Ooh.
That is connection.
Yeah.
Or are you more focused, which we typically are as parents, on they didn't brush their hair yet. I can tell they don't have their shoes on yet. They didn't even brush their teeth. And that's what we start to focus on. But do your eyes light up when your child walks into the room?
I like that.
That's pure connection.
Got it. Wow.
Yeah.
So as a parent coach, and I mean, well, obviously you have all this different things that you do. So you said you start your process with having them get connected and noticing the behavior or their reactions, you know, when there's that volcano moment. What do you have them actually do in that moment of reaction? What are some tips that you give?
Right. Well, the biggest one is stop, breathe. Whatever you need to do to stop yourself between the stimulus, whatever occurred, and your reaction. Just stop a moment. So what I tell parents to do, because they're modeling emotional regulation for their children, they're teaching their child how to regulate their emotions by watching their parents do it. So for a parent, I tell them, just tell your child, you know what, my brain's really getting heated up right now. I'm going to go take a 5-minute time off.
Yeah.
I want to come back and us connect together. And if you want to go take a time off too, so it's not time out. It's not that they're being put on the steps or whatever. We're going to go calm our brain down now, because we're not solving this at this point, and we're just saying some pretty mean-spirited things.
Yeah.
So, and I tell parents, it is not up to me to tell them how to calm themselves down, right?
Right.
That individual has to find a way themselves, but takes practice. And I tell parents, you are in training now. Because when parents tell me, okay, I'm going to try, and I always use the Star Wars quote, which I screw up half the time, Yoda's quote, do or no do, there is no try. And I said, how about if you change the word try to I intend, and this is what I'm going to do. And to know, I tell parents, you are in training now, and you are training those emotional muscles.
Yeah.
And it takes time, because typically parents go into default mode, just as kids do. So if they don't have a plan, they go into default mode. Whereas if they think, okay, all I have to remember is stop, pause, breathe.
Yeah, put a big sign on your wall or something. Stop. Yeah, pause, breathe.
Whatever it is. I've had some parents put like a rubber band on their wrist, something, and just
yeah. I've heard of that.
It's kind of like, okay.
Yeah.
And then how are you going to approach the situation? How are you going to respond? Right?
Mm-hmm.
One of the things that I work with moms in particular about, which helps with their ability to do this, is self-care.
Mm-hmm.
Because when the mom is taking care of herself, it is much easier for her to calm herself down. She's not
okay.
back. So that's one of the first homework assignments I give moms. Now, they often say, I can't find the time. And I say, you don't find time, right?
Yeah. Good luck with that.
You create it. You carve out the time. Put it on the calendar. It's on the calendar. It can be 5 minutes, 10 minutes. Even stepping outside during this time off and taking 3 deep breaths and looking up at the sky helps the nervous system.
Yeah. Yeah. I do a 6 breath technique. I just do it throughout the day. And it's just to bring me back to being calm and present and, take my mind away from the focus.
Right.
And it does, you're right, it helps with being more present with Bella. So, I see something that comes across my Facebook every so often. I always find interesting is, do you believe we should spank our children or that they need it? What are your thoughts on spanking?
On spanking. Okay. Well, I will preface this with saying I live in South Carolina. Spanking is still acceptable down here. Mm-hmm. What I'm going to say is what Hal Runkle of Screen Free Parenting says. I am not judging you. I'm not saying whether you should spank or not spank. Mm-hmm. What I'm suggesting is that you be intentional about spanking. Spank because you've made a decision to spank. Because what happens is spanking is often a last resort.
Yeah.
It's out of frustration. It is out of anger. It is because the child will not comply. I will tell you, many years ago, I probably spanked our kids a couple times each. Am I happy I did it? No. Do I think I'm the world's worst mom? No. But I will tell you, I didn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
And so
that makes sense.
So, parents who are listening to this, if you are spanking because nothing else is working, I promise you there is a different way and a better way. I promise you.
I just got goosebumps. Yeah. I would have to agree. I like how you responded to that.
And what do kids learn from spanking?
Yeah.
They learn to fear you. They learn to hit back. They really aren't learning anything. And the reason parents feel it is effective is because then the child does what he was supposed to do. So if I don't spank, if I don't yell, they're not going to do what I said.
Yeah.
And it's actually the opposite of that. Once you make that connection, and I'm not talking about free range parenting where you let your kids go off. I'm talking about guiding them through and allowing them to make the choices for themselves.
Yeah.
And then, they're natural. I believe, I don't know, I have mixed feelings right now. In the conscious parenting movement, there's a lot of negative stuff written about consequences, that consequences are bad. There are natural consequences in life. Mm-hmm. Right?
Yep.
We all, as adults, there are consequences of our behavior.
Yeah.
So, for example, this is an extreme, but if you walk in front of a car, you're going to be hit.
Yeah.
Injured or killed, right?
Yep.
If you are repeatedly late for your job or you're not showing up, there's a consequence, which is losing your job.
Yeah.
So when I talk about consequences, I'm not, saying that child's grounded for a month or whatever. But there are consequences, say for a teenager who doesn't study for an exam, and the parent, because out of their own anxieties, you've got to study, and the teenager's blowing it off because it's not important to them, and they fail. That is a natural consequence of not studying.
Yeah.
Now, again, going back to parents want to be their child's best friend, and this is where helicopter parenting kind of came about.
Yeah.
parents' own anxiety about, if my child doesn't pass that exam, then they're not going to get into the AP class, or heaven forbid, how am I going to look as a parent? Because
Yeah.
my behavior is a reflection of my parenting ability, which
Yeah.
parents, that is a myth. That is not true. The
Okay.
best thing parents can do is allow their child to experience the consequences of their own choices,
Yeah.
and not write a note that they be able to take that exam again, that they were sick, when that wasn't true.
How would a parent want to respond to a child who maybe failed that exam?
Mm-hmm.
You know, since the parent has all the anxiety about it,
Right.
and let's just say there's a parent who's not, hounding them about studying, and they're just letting it take its natural course. And then that child fails the exam. Obviously, they're going to be upset.
Sure.
How would a parent respond to that?
So acknowledge their feelings. How are you feeling about it? Yeah, I can see you're upset. I understand that. So what do you think you could do next time so that it doesn't happen again?
Good. I love
So you're
that.
you're giving them the responsibility, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if you've read any of the research studies about what's going on in college now, but the college campuses, the counseling centers are being flooded with college kids who are anxious, depressed, who don't know how to make decisions for themselves. They're paralyzed because their parents, out of love, did everything for them.
Yeah.
Made sure that they didn't have to know how to do things, made sure that they didn't fail. So now when they fail a class,
Yeah.
or a test, they're feeling horrible about themselves. They're panicking. They've actually done research.
Wow.
There's a lot of college kids now who are angry at their parents for not allowing them to be responsible, not teaching
That
them.
makes sense. Yeah. I often wondered about because I've actually heard young people talking about, oh, I've got so much anxiety, and I actually did some coaching with a gal who had an intense amount of anxiety, and wondered where that connection was coming from. So this is like the first time I've heard that. That makes sense.
Well,
I always saw it as, the mirror effect too, as being a
right.
part of that.
Sure. Well, I say, I believe it seems like anxiety is in the water nowadays. I think we've become a
Yeah.
society. But for kids, young adults who have not been allowed to experience failure because the parents didn't want them to suffer, right?
Yeah.
Or that they felt, well, if I let them fail, then how am I going to look as a parent?
Yeah.
There is a saying, prepare your child for the path, not prepare the path for your child.
Well, that's powerful. Yeah. Wow. Well, is there any tips or anything, because this is Mama's Matter week because of Mother's Day coming up right around the corner. So is there anything that you would want the moms to know before we close the show today?
Yes, two things. Moms, please take care of yourself. Your children are asking for you to take care of yourself. I will tell you, in the many, many years, and I don't see kids in therapy now, I only work with parents. For all the years that I saw kids, when I would say, if there's one thing you could change about your family, I'm curious what that would be. And they would say that my moms wouldn't be so stressed. Every once in a while they said parents, but typically it was moms. They said, I want my mom to be happy and not be so stressed. And these were moms that were loving, loving moms that were trying to do it all and hold it all together. But what they weren't doing is taking care of themselves. So,
wow,
yes.
That's powerful. Got me teared up.
So that would be my number one message. Number two is moms, you have the answers within. Trust your own intuition. Is it okay if I just show a copy of my book?
Yeah, definitely.
So it's Mothering with Courage, and I wrote it for you moms to help you find your own answers and trust your own intuition and to go on this journey. So at the end of the day, you did the best you could at the time and let go of the mom.
Well, for those listeners out there, that would be a really great gift to get your mom for Mother's Day.
Well, thank you. Grandma giving, or mom, or giving.
Yeah, grandma. Yep.
So anyways, yes, but I just really want moms to know they're doing an amazing job. They really are. And moms, your kids are forgiving and resilient, and it is never too late.
Yeah. Excuse me.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for being on here with us today, Bonnie. I just want to acknowledge you for the work that you do, and the stand that you are, that moms and dads out there are better parents for their children, and that we do raise children in this world that are going to transform our world based on how we're parenting.
It's true, absolutely. They have the ability to do that. And so
Thank
just
you.
be very mindful of the messages you're sending your kids.
Got it.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. So